Hello everyone. In the series of the physiology lectures, when we are discussing about the endocrine physiology, in this particular topic, we are going to talk about thyroid hormone regulation. So, we have already discussed in detail about how thyroid hormones are synthesized and act. It's time to understand how their production is regulated. So, this is absolutely crucial for both physiology as well as clinical endocrinology. So let's begin with the hypothalamic-pituitary-thyroid axis. What exactly it is, which is the central control system for the thyroid function. So let's discuss in detail about hypothalamic-pituitary-thyroid axis. So at the top of this hormonal hierarchy is the hypothalamus, which is sitting at top, which releases a hormone called as thyrotropin-releasing hormone. So what triggers the TRH release? Stress, exposure to the extreme cold, sleep-wake cycle, all these going to stimulate the release of the TRH. TRH, once released from the hypothalamus, the thyroid-releasing hormone travels through the hypophyseal portal system to the anterior pituitary, where the TRH stimulates the release of TSH, which is the thyroid-stimulating hormone. So now thyroid-stimulating hormone acts on the thyroid gland directly to increase uptake of the iodine, to stimulate thyroid hormone synthesis, that is T3 and T4, and also to promote secretion of the thyroid hormones directly into the bloodstream, right? So now let us discuss about the negative feedback mechanism. Now, once T3 and T4 levels rise in the blood, so whenever there is a need, TRH is released, TRH is going to stimulate the TSH, released from the anterior pituitary, TSH is going to stimulate the thyroid gland, and thyroid gland is synthesizing T3 and T4. Now, when enough T3 and T4 levels rise in the blood, they feed back negatively on both the pituitary and the hypothalamus. How? They decrease the TRH secretion from the hypothalamus. So, obviously, there will be decreased pituitary sensitivity to TRH. So, there will be decreased TSH secretion. So, the body maintains a very tight control over the thyroid hormone levels via elegant negative feedback loop, right? So, this is how the thyroid hormones are regulated. Now, TSH and thyroid regulation in the disease states. Let's talk about the Graves' disease. I'm only talking about the physiological perspective over here. Pathology you are going to study elsewhere, right? So, when we talk about the Graves' disease, which is a classical example of disrupted regulation. In Graves' disease, what happens is the body produces TSH receptor stimulating autoantibodies, right? So also known as TSI. These are thyroid stimulating immunoglobulin. So these antibodies mimic TSH, means they act like TSH and directly stimulate the thyroid gland. Even though the TSH levels from the pituitary are suppressed due to high T3, T4, this results in hyperthyroidism. So there will be high T3, T4, low TSH with features like tachycardia, weight loss, heat intolerance, and more. What we see is the classical example in Graves' disease. Next, another important clinical aspect I want to talk to you about is the Wolff-Chaikoff effect. So, in this particular concept, when the body is exposed to large amounts of iodine, like through diet, like contrast dye or iodine supplementation, so the thyroid, what happens is temporarily shuts down the hormone synthesis. Why? Because excess iodine inhibits thyroid peroxidase, which is the key enzyme involved in iodination and coupling reactions. So this is a protective phenomenon or mechanism mainly to prevent thyrotoxicosis from iodine overload. But remember, this effect is usually transient and self-limited in nature. Now, let me give you another pharmacology perspective, drug-induced modulation of the thyroid function. So now let's go over the important pharmacological influences on thyroid hormone metabolism, that is inhibition of T3 to T4 conversion. So there are certain drugs which reduces the peripheral activation or conversion of T4 to active T3. These are glucocorticoids, propranolol, which is a beta blocker, and another one is a propyl thiouracil. So this can lead to low thyroid syndrome or low T3 syndrome, we can say, especially during illness. And next one is increased conversion of T4 to reverse T3. So that can be done by growth hormone and glucocorticoids. Now remember, reverse T3 is inactive. So even though T4 is being converted, it does not support the metabolism. This is important in conditions like euthyroid sick syndrome or critical illnesses where T3 levels may rise. That is, reverse T3 levels may rise. Next important clinical link is the thyroid peroxidase inhibitors. So these drugs blocks the enzyme that catalyzes the thyroid peroxidase enzyme, that is mainly the oxidation of iodide, organification and coupling reactions. The example drugs we already studied few times in this lectures itself, like methimazole and propylthiouracil. So these drugs are mainly used to treat the hyperthyroidism by preventing the synthesis of T3 and T4. So by this we completed in detail about the regulation of the thyroid hormone synthesis or their activity, and also the clinical links which are related to it. And by this we completed in detail about the thyroid hormone physiology.